Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. In particular, I'd like to give a shout out. Good morning to Neil. Good morning to Andy, to Michael, to Carol, to Peter, to Mervyn. We wish long life. I'm sure he'll be joining us shortly. To David Goldring, to Andrew Harris. Wish them all long life. Today's learning is dedicated in memory of following names: Malka Bas Avram Gabai, Sarah Malka Bas Binyamin Jacob, Shlomo David Ben Ber Harris, Binyamin Ben Mordechai Seligman, Ami Bas Aryeh, Paul Kazmir, Shaul Ben Shlomo, Yirmiyahu Yochai Ben Moshe Eliezer, Shlomo Yochai Ben Moshe Eliezer, Ben Zion Ben Yitzchak, Ari Ben Shimon, Leah Bas Bible, Avram Mordechai Ben Moshe Katna, Menashe Ben Tzvi Zalman, Ralia Bas Avram Pinkus, which all their families, respective families, long life and only simchas. So I want to share with you a couple of ideas this morning. Just to be clear, I apologize, but this is the last one before I'm having annual leave. So the whole of next week, there will not be this program. We'll be back the following week. So apologies about that. But they say absence makes the heart grow fonder. Or does it say absence makes the heart wonder? Whichever version you take. Apologies. So let's one of my I love Pasha Shoftim so action-packed, so many different fascinating and ideas. So let's make a start. The first idea, there's a famous verse that relates to this week's Torah portion. Tamim tiyeh im Hashem Elokecha, which literally means that one is meant to be complete with Hashem, your God. That's what it means. The Rishna Rebbe was one of the great Hasidic masters, and he told the following story. And I'm going to tell you two stories, the first one and the second one, and they're going to seemingly contradict each other, but I really think they're two facets of the same idea. So the question is, what exactly does it mean? Tamim tiyeh Hashem Elokecha, that we're meant to be perfect with God. So there was a Jew who once sold furs for his livelihood. And he had many furs that he were in stock, but they weren't selling. So once early in the morning, there was a knock on the door, and somebody said that he wanted to buy all the furs that he had. Now, obviously, for this guy, this was like, imagine after the pandemic, after the lockdown, this was a dream. This was it. He was going to be able to sell out. However, there was one little technical issue. It was very early in the morning, and the man had not davened the morning service, Shacharis. He hadn't done Shacharis yet. And there is a halacha, there is a Jewish law, that the first thing we're meant to do in the morning is to pray to God. We're meant to thank him for the blessings that he bestows upon us. And we're not meant to be busy with our own personal needs before we deal with the needs of the Almighty. And therefore, the man realized that he hadn't done Shacharis yet. He couldn't conduct business before Shacharis. One's not allowed to. And so he said to this non-Jew, he said to him, come back in an hour and I'll sell you them for a good price. The man said, no, I'm very, very sorry. Sorry, we've got a weak connection. He says, if you don't sell them to me now, I'll buy them from somewhere else. So the Jewish man didn't want to explain to the non-Jew about the laws about business and Shacharis. One's not allowed to do business before Shacharis. And therefore, he just made up in his mind a most exorbitant figure that he was sure the non-Jew would refuse to pay. But to his surprise, the non-Jew actually turned around and was desperate for these furs. And he says, no, I'm willing to pay the price. So he heard a voice in his head, and the voice of the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, the negative side, came along, and it said to him, you can't allow this deal to go. Okay? It's a gift from heaven. What? Give up on one little law, one little Shacharis you'll forego for the sake of doing this little bit of business, which you desperately need to sell furs. You've got so many and you haven't managed to sell them. So eventually he raised the price, thinking that this would deter the non-Jew. And eventually the non-Jew said, if you won't sell them to me, he said to him, I'll only sell them in an hour. I can't sell them now. And the man said to him, I'm very sorry. If you won't sell them to me now, then I'm going to leave and I'm going to go elsewhere. And that's exactly what happened. And the Hasidim were all gathered around the Rebbe and they were waiting. You know, many Hasidic stories, they always have, don't they, friends? They always have like the punchline, the twist at the end, the happy ending, where, you know, all of a sudden the man came back an hour later and he got all the furs were he bought and he paid an even higher price and it was great. And in fact, the Hasidim were waiting. They say to the Rebbe, no, what happened? And the Rebbe said nothing. Absolutely nothing. That's the end of the story. The man lost out on this deal because he kept that law. He adhered to his principles. And this, says the Rebbe, the Hasidic Rebbe, the Rizhner Rebbe, is the principle that he wanted to impress upon his students. The idea that we are meant to be loyal to our principles, loyal to Jewish law, loyal to halacha at all costs. He lost the deal. It doesn't always work out that when we do the right thing, that we see, we reap the rewards, that it comes good, that we don't lose out. Standing up for one's principles means sometimes we lose out. In the short term, we lose out. Not in the long term, not in the big picture, but in this world, it means sometimes making self-sacrifices. That was the first idea. There is another idea, which is the word tamim, which means to be perfect. Okay, and I'm just going to plug in the wire because I'm worried that the battery's going to run out. Apologies, bear with me. I wouldn't want to lose you, and on a Friday we're always running low on battery, aren't we? So let me just plug it in. Okay, there we go. That should work. Hopefully that should work better. Okay, so the second idea is tamim. The letter in the Sefer Torah is usually written bigger. The taf, the first letter of the word perfect, tamim, is written bigger than the other letters. And the Kotzker Rebbe explained that what is the idea? What is this alluding, hinting to with having that letter bigger? And he said that everyone can and must live a life of tamimus, of perfection, right? It's not just for a few. The letter taf is big because it's not for the few, it's not for the small minority, but it's for everyone. It's all inclusive, right? So that is the next idea, which is that all of us can aim for perfection. Doesn't mean we're going to get there. No one achieves it, in fact. But the idea of working towards perfection is something that is up to each and every one of us. If you don't work towards something, you'll never get close. So therefore, we have to do our bit. And that's the second idea. Now, the third idea is an unbelievable story. And that's the idea of tamimus means also, it doesn't just mean perfection, it means simplicity, okay? Innocence. In other words, I have to believe that whatever God is doing, I have a simple faith, a steadfast, simple faith, emunah pashut, as they say, which is that whatever God is doing, it's for the best, okay? Okay, so that's the idea. And the story goes about 100 years ago in Williamsburg. Anyone been to Williamsburg? Williamsburg in New York. And a woman brought her ill son to a doctor, and he had a very high fever and it wasn't going down. That's what she told the doctor. The doctor trembled when he recognized the deathly illness that this child had developed. Here's a prescription. Go to the pharmacy and buy the medicine immediately. Your son's life is dependent on it, he told her. Now there was no bupa, there was no PPP or whatever it is, and therefore the woman didn't have insurance. She was, exceptionally poor, and she just had enough money to pay for the doctor. She didn't have any money to pay for the medicine. So when she went to the pharmacy and she explained her predicament and the gravity of the situation, it was life-threatening. The pharmacist said to her, "I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll make a deal with you. I'll give you this medicine, but you're going to have to work for 2 weeks for me as a cleaner in my home in order to pay for the medicine." He drew up a contract. They signed the contract. The woman agreed that she was going to work these ridiculously long hours, but she was prepared to do so for the sake of her life. She left the pharmacy with the medicine and she started on her way. And on her way home, she took a shortcut because obviously she was keen to get back to give the medicine. to her son. And it was a dangerous route, crime-ridden route. And she was stopped and held up at knife point. And the gunner, the thief, said to her, "Give me the bag, give me the money in the bag." And she says, I'm an exceptionally poor woman. There is no money. So he grabbed the bag, which of course had the medicine. He opened it up and he saw there was no money. He was very, very angry. But he saw there was this bottle of medicine. And she begged him, "Don't, please, whatever you do, give me that medicine. My son is deathly ill." And without listening to her, he ripped off the lid and swallowed the medicine. And then he had a bad taste and he spat it out, and it splattered all over her. She was wearing a white dress. This black liquid was all over her. She went back absolutely distraught, went back to the pharmacist, explained what had happened, and he says, "Don't worry, I'll make up another potion for you, and you'll have to work another 2 weeks." She signed another agreement. This is 4 weeks. She's going to have to work day and night to pay for the medicine. And as he's making up this concoction, she notices something different. She says to him, to the pharmacist, "It's different. The color is different. It's red. Look at my dress. What you gave me was black." The pharmacist turned around and his face went white. He realized that he'd made a terrible, potentially tragic mistake by giving her the first medicine. It was the wrong one, and it would have killed her son. And therefore, he now gave her the correct medicine, and he gave her that medicine with free of charge and ripped off the previous contract. And that says, Rabbi Biederman says, the idea of tamimus is that sometimes in life we just have to have blind faith. We have to have faith. We don't know why things are happening. Sometimes it works out for the best, or what appears to us the best. Sometimes it works out with terrible consequences, and in the immediacy, the aftermath, it's very difficult for us to understand. But tamim tiyeh Hashem alakecha, we have to have perfect faith that whatever the Almighty throws our way, ultimately it's for our ultimate good. It may be difficult for us to comprehend in the short term, looking at this particular moment in time, but ultimately it is, and we have to do everything we can to live a life of perfection with perfect faith. That is the meaning, the double meaning of tamim, of being perfect. Let's now recite, friends, Psalm 23, and then we will wrap things up with memorial prayer and refuah shlema. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He causes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even as I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You set a table before me in the presence of my adversaries. You anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord for the length of days. Memorial prayer. Adon elamim zacho es nishmos ami bar Aryeh o Kazime Shlomo Shol ben Shlomo Yom Yochid ben Moshe Eliezer Shlomo Yochid ben Moshe Eliezer ben Zion ben Yitzchak Arab ben Shimon Le'bas Faivo Avram Mordechai ben Shekatna Menashe ben Tzvi Zalman Ralia bas Avram Pinkus, as well as the Yortsites for today. Malka bas Avram Gabbai, Sarah Malka bas Binyamin Jacob, Shlomo David ben Ber Harris, Binyamin ben Mordechai Seligman, Aryeh ben Aaron Williams, Simcha ben Yitzchak, Simon Shalchuri Lamam Bagan Aiden Taimanucha Sam Lachim Balarachamim Yasi Ray Besisa Kana Pavli Alamim Visos Samad Nachlasam Vianucha Mishkavasam Vishalam and Amar Amen. Long life wishes to all. David, I think you missed it at the beginning. We wished you long life, and we just dedicated the learning in memory along with all the others that we did so. Now, refuah shlema prayer. Misha Barachav Ramin from Yaakov Moshe Aaron David Shlomo Ivar Krepes Achilim Bavu Shanim Spalim Bavu Rambus Lazaratosh Baruchu Yimale Rachim Alehim Lach Monafosam Vishlach Nem Fushim Shmaim Lechol Vem Besosh Lach Yisrael Refuah Sanefesh Refuah Saguf Hashavak Zmakarev and Amar Amen. Friends, this brings us to the end of our program and our break for the summer. It's been an exceptionally long year, so I'm sure you'll forgive me. It's not that I'm going anywhere, no plans at the moment, but just need a week to recharge the batteries. So I'm going to be off now for a week or so. We'll notify you when we're back on. All right. In the meantime, watch Facebook, the gap at the top, and you'll see I'll notify you when we're back on. Wishing you all a good Shabbos, Shabbat Shalom. Enjoy the break, and please God, we'll see you in just over a week. Take care.